Hey y'all, so I want to talk a little bit about my experience with the church growing up. And I went into this a little bit when I was doing my Jim and Tammy Baker video. But I grew up, I spent a lot of time with my maternal grandmother, who was super duper religious. She was Pentecostal. You know, this is the South, right? You got a church on every corner. Now, my parents at the time, my mother really wasn't religious at all because I think she kind of grew up in that environment and she just no, rejected it. My dad was kind of questioning his faith, but he was also exploring different religions. I remember at the time, it was Catholicism, Buddhism, the whole nine yards. He was just kind of questioning everything and trying to figure out what to believe. And it's funny because now he's Methodist, which is kind of what he started at. He came back to what he knew. So anyway, my grandmother, I would go with her to church. We'd go Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Every time the doors were open, we'd be at church. Now, here's the positive thing about it. I loved my youth group. We had Bible quiz bowls. We had an ensemble that would go and sing at different churches. We would compete. We'd do car washes to raise money I think we went to D.C. one time, New York another time, Atlanta. And that was a lot of fun. And, it gave you a sense of belonging and community. And there were a lot of lovely people at the church, very kind people. And it also kind of taught you charity. We would do fundraisers to help people, rockathons, stuff like that. But the downside of this was, and it was a very fear-based religion, and it was based on guilt. And so, don't wear pants. This is for the women. And most of it's geared towards women, by the way. You can't wear pants. Don't curse. You can't dance. No sex before marriage. If you do any of these things, and, the list goes on and on. It's a litany of things that you couldn't do. You're going to go to hell unless you repent. And so you always have to worry about backsliding. And backsliding is when you sin and then you have to repent and say, oh, God, please forgive me. I'm sorry. And it was just a lot. And I remember the pastor was always yelling and, fire and brimstone. And I was like, what is this about? As I got older and I had friends in high school that were more secular and I started thinking a little bit differently about things, especially changed when I went to college and started traveling the world and stuff. So I don't believe that religion itself is bad, but unfortunately I think sometimes the way men and women interpret whatever text that religion has can be bad. When I think about the Bible and I think about Jesus, right, I think of him being love. I think him being very tolerant, of being accepting of all people, Whereas when you grow up in a Pentecostal church, if you have an abortion, you're going to hell. If you're gay, you're going to hell. And I don't believe that. I truly do not believe that. But, I don't know. Dogma is dangerous, I think. And people sometimes can be dangerous with their beliefs when they use it to harm others instead of lifting each other up and loving each other. And people can take things out of context too. We see it on YouTube, right? You'll say something and then they'll twist it. And that's what people sometimes do with the Bible. They twist it to fit whatever narrative they want you to believe. And so it can be really dangerous. Now, I will say this. My grandmother was very loving and very tolerant. But she was also very wrapped up in the church. And very strict. I grew up very strict, y'all. But my mom, contrast that with my mother, who was a bit of a wild child, and very fierce. I'd love to see my mom on here. Man, she wouldn't put up with some of you people. She's fierce and kind of my hero, She's a therapist, or she was. She deals with a lot of autoimmune things now, a lot, and it's kind of slowed her down, but she's still a force of nature. That's random, I know. But anyway, that's just kind of a little, I always do like these 4-minute clips, right? But I feel like our attention spans are a little bit shorter. But I just want to talk a little bit about what it was like for me growing up in church. And, I felt like I was always praying. I was always afraid of something. And I've really had to fight to kind of overcome that mindset. And I have, but it's taken a while. So anyway, until next time. Hey y'all, so I want to talk about something a little bit different. I want to talk about my experience with the church. Now, I grew up in the church. I grew up